Hi, Pearl.
Oh, hello,
Can
Bree.
you
How
hear
are
me?
you today?
Using an iPad, and now I'm realizing the camera sucks on the split.
Yeah, go
Oh,
through
okay,
that
I don't
could
know
you
effect.
if
go
I
in the
could fix
middle?
it.
Yeah, go in the middle. There you go.
Let me see. I may just be not looking properly, everybody. So sorry about
Oh, yes. As
that.
long as you're on camera, we're good.
Okay.
Where are you
Um,
at?
so I'm from Kansas City.
Oh, okay, cool. So,
Yeah.
in your
Oh,
opinion, are Christian women wife material?
I do agree with you that a lot of Christian women are not uh marriage material. I think a lot of Christian men aren't marriage material either. I just think in general the church has a huge problem. More, and I'm coming from a Protestant side
Okay.
of that.
What denomination?
Well, so I went to a church called Calvary Chapel, which I think overall is considered non-denominational.
Okay.
Non-denominational, and I'm the oldest of seven kids. You and I have kind of a similar background because I
Hmm.
come from a big family. I'm the oldest, and I have five sisters. So,
Oh, wow.
very churchy. My parents were like incredibly involved in church.
Hmm.
They're still married today. We're all blood related. We're not a blended family.
Hmm.
Um, but I grew up, so I'm older than you,
Hmm.
like probably 10 years older than you. And when I was growing up as a teenager, I feel like one of the biggest things, like the biggest mistakes that churches made with the youth back then was the whole purity conversation. And I don't know if that was around when you were growing up in church,
Oh,
but
oh, yeah.
yeah, I feel like what happened, and I'll kind of go into, I feel like I check so many of these opposite boxes for you, so I hope I'm a fun guest to have on.
Hmm.
So when I was growing up, the purity conversation, hey, wait till you're married, both genders, right?
Hmm.
Like male, female, wait till you're married. Absolutely nothing until you're married. Don't I remember my dad being like, a guy can't touch your abdomen. Like what is that? I don't know. You're like not allowed to touch until you're married.
Hmm.
And I think that had the opposite effect on people. I'm sorry, I wish I could get more on camera for you. I
There
feel
you
like
go.
that had
Right there. You're good. Right there.
okay. I feel like that had the opposite effect on everyone, both genders,
Hmm.
where if you made the mistake of kissing someone
Hmm.
or even, all the way sleeping with
Hmm.
somebody, you felt like now you're in a position of, okay, now you got to marry that person, right?
Hmm.
You did the thing that's only for married people. So,
Hmm.
and you started seeing this person at 14, 15, whatever, 16, 17 for some of us.
Hmm.
Now you're stuck with them that you've got to make this work, right? Or it was like, oh, you made the mistake. So now you're a whore, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like now you already messed up. So then you kind of feel like, okay, well, I already messed up, so now I'm just gonna do it. Or now I'm like kicked out of the church or whatever,
Hmm. Hmm.
whatever you have. I feel like there wasn't a lot of counseling for teens in church at that
Hmm.
time. I think they sort of dropped that maybe like 5 years after I got out. I don't know what
Hmm.
your thoughts are on that.
Well, they also don't have paths to marriage, in my opinion. So it's
Totally
like they
agree.
like we're pushing the marriage age right now to like 30, right? That's what the normal world is doing. And I don't really see a lot of programs that get the men and the women together. And to me it's because they're giving them the wrong information. It's like they're telling a lot of the men the happy wife, happy life type stuff, and that doesn't arouse women. And
Yeah.
then that's from my point of view. I don't think the church has figured out how to have people date in the modern world. I don't think they've figured
I
it out yet.
completely agree. Completely agree. And but I do want to say, I think the Protestant church side of things has it right in terms of, or the statistics that you have quoted too, which is, hey, if you're each other's only, okay, and you get married and you have that relationship and you have a way higher likelihood of making it. And I have several friends that are my age now
Mhm,
that did that, right? They waited until they were, married
mhm,
to do anything. And they waited a long time to become what sexually active, if you
mhm,
will. They didn't even get married till they were 21. My story is when I was, I lost my virginity at 17 to my first high school boyfriend, kind of was like, okay, whatever, I messed up, it's over, but I actually kept it together. I really, still, I went to a Christian school. My graduating class was only 10 kids.
Mhm.
So very small circle, and still had a lot of religious support to kind of keep it together and not hoe out, if you will.
Mhm.
And then when I was about 18 on my own in my own apartment, I ended up meeting my husband at that time. And that's when, I don't know, am I still on right
I'm
now?
still here. I think the just keep blessing's gonna fix it. I hear you.
Okay. Oh, okay. Anyway, I all I was gonna say is I ended up getting married by the time I was 19. And my dad begged me not to do it, told me I wasn't ready.
Really? Your
Um
dad asked you not?
on
I was
on the
just
day of my wedding, Pearl, he begged me
I
not
was
to do
just
it.
talking to someone about how dads raise their daughters like sons now and
Mm,
give them advice. Like most dads don't want their daughters to marry young either.
yeah.
That's true.
Well, and he wasn't necessarily against getting married young. He just knew that this one wasn't the one,
Oh,
kind of
okay.
thing. And I only dated this person um for I think we dated 4 months, and then like we were engaged, and then we were married within a year. So it was absolutely too soon. He was from the church as well, and was very inexperienced himself.
Mhm.
I think he man, I feel bad for the people who know me. Sorry, people. But I think he was a virgin when we got married. I wasn't, and so that was different.
Were you a do you think it was like an attraction thing? Like what was the problem, you
No,
think?
why did I get married?
Oh,
Is that
sorry.
what you're
I guess
asking?
the way you were talking, I assumed it didn't work out, so I was just curious
No,
why.
it did, correct. So that, yeah, so I shouldn't have gotten married. And I heard you saying earlier, women blame feminism sometimes.
Mhm.
I don't, and that's, I'm not coming here to blame. I take full responsibility for all my mistakes,
Mhm.
and for what I did. I don't think, I think I just, everyone just makes their own decisions, right? And I
Mhm.
made some bad ones. So I shouldn't have gotten married. I knew that very quickly that I shouldn't have gotten married, probably within a matter of months, but I kind of felt like, well, I made this commitment growing up in church, right? You're like, okay, well, it's too late. I already signed the paper, right? So
Mhm.
here I am. This is what I'm doing. But I was pretty unhappy. I gained a lot of weight. I probably gained about 30 pounds that first year. So sad. And then I had a son with him. And so by the time I was 20 and had a son, my husband at the time was making almost no money. Life was really, really hard. And I was working too. And then we're trying to raise my son, and very stressed. So then I decided to go to college, which is where you get told all the great things about why you shouldn't be a married young person, and how
Mhm.
there's so much more life out there, and blah, blah, blah. And as time went on, I like within a year of being in school, I was like, I'm done. I want to get divorced. Again, my parents were very upset and devastated. Actually, my entire family shamed me over it,
Mhm.
which they should have. I mean, that it was just all a big mess and
Mhm.
unnecessary, and it was just one bad decision after the other. And we had a baby, and that was all like it was really hard to work through. At that same time, I ended up reconnecting again, a classic what scenario that you give all the
The
time. Ended up
ex-boyfriend. Yeah.
correct,
Yeah. Yeah,
totally,
always. Yeah.
totally, always. So we ended up reconnecting, and within a matter of weeks of my divorce, I was pregnant again with my second son. With
Girl, sorry.
I know, I know, I'm telling you, it's a crazy story, crazy
Okay.
story. But and I was so embarrassed. It was horrible. I felt really awful about it. Didn't really know how to deal with it. But
Mhm.
my ex husband, which was my first son's father, um, really handled it well. I have to give him that credit. Like
Mhm.
we and unlike a lot of women that go through these things, I didn't. I I knew how important it was to have a father for my son, and so I we did not go through any custody battles whatsoever. I immediately put us on a 50-50, no child support whatsoever. No,
Wow,
and we
good
were only
job.
married like it.
Good job. You're
Yeah,
not the majority. Good job.
not the majority at all. And I just knew I just understood all those, and I love my dad. right? I
Mhm.
love my dad. And then I knew how important a same-sex parent is. So I knew how important my son, yeah, like he needed his dad, and that was going to be the case forever. And I needed that help. I think parents don't realize, like, or being a single mom, being a single dad, it doesn't matter. Like, you need that help. Why would you not rely on the other person who created the baby with you? It just
Yeah.
made sense to be like, let's work together and be as seamless as possible, even though we're not living in the same house. Again, that is not an excuse. That doesn't mean, hey, my kid should have grown up exactly. I'm not saying that, but I
Mhm.
do fully agree with you about child custody laws, that it should never be like 80 if it's at all possible physically, to have 50-50. That should be the kid, that should be the
Mhm.
automatic default. And I think both my sons are better for it. So at that time I had my sons are only 23 months apart, so they were very little. I was with the second that second person, my second son's father, for 5 years.
Mhm.
Again, relationship ended. Now, we did not get married at all.
Mhm.
So that relationship ended. And I would say, again, it was a choice I made, falling right into those scenarios again. I was like, hey, I don't want to. And life was real. I think what happens with women, what I feel like happened with me, again, not a justification, just I think it's a mentality thing. Life was hard. You're toiling. I was 23, 24 when like by the time I had these babies, and broke up with him when I was about 27, 28. And life was hard. We had no money. Things were difficult. You're like trying to get through. You're both working. All of those things make a relationship hard.
Mhm.
And then I wasn't married. So I was like, I don't have to be committed to this, which I was writing down some questions I wanted to ask you, just your thoughts, not as like a gotcha.
Mhm.
But I know you advocate for like, hey, let's be careful about getting married, right? Or like, getting married may not be the best deal for a man. But I don't know what that means for protections for them with their kids later on. But for me, with my ex, when I ended that relationship, again, I immediately was like, let's 50-50. And I had my kids
Mhm.
every other week. My kids are 13 and 15 now, but I have them on essentially the same schedule. So they both come to me at the same time. So they spend time together. We are like our own family. And then their dads, they have time with their dads, and they're separate from each other at that time, but they're both with their dads, and
Mhm.
no child support with either one of them. And I think my kids are really stable and they really love their dads, and it's all good. So I think that I don't know, life happens, and I don't know how I don't know why women reject the men that created the baby with them and won't
Mhm.
involve them. I think it's a really important thing, and even though I don't advocate at all for single parenthood, or like that it's
Mhm.
irrelevant that both people be in the same house, I do think that you can still create a lot of stability just by having that 50
Mhm.
50 custody for sure.
Mhm.
But back to the church thing,
I
I
agree
just
with you on
wanted
the
to.
50. I think actually kids turn out better when um if there's a wife that doesn't respect the father, and she's constantly like it's not a, like she's constantly disrespecting him. I see similar outcomes to single motherhood.
Yes,
So yeah.
totally agree. Totally agree. And women, I think, underestimate, especially with sons. Maybe it could be a little different
Yeah.
if you have daughters, but I think women underestimate how sons need that. They need. There's just something about a father parenting. It's a little stronger, and women don't handle parenting the same way that men do. It's different. At least that's my experience. I was Yeah, I still
This
struggle with it with my teen boys.
yeah.
It's hard to be firmer.
Teenage.
You're not as
Yeah.
firm.
Yeah.
And they need they need to know that there's like even not at my house, like even when they're not or when they're with me and their dads aren't there, they're still, I mean, I still say things like, I'm going to call your dad. Like if and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
No.
and it's good. We have a good relationship that way in those parenting households. We're there to support each other. And if you're not doing that, you're, like you said, the person who gets hurt the absolute most is your kids,
Mhm.
always.
Mhm.
But going back to the church thing, I think that was the biggest mistake that I felt. and again, taking responsibility for my own
Yeah, yeah, I
decisions,
understand. You've been very
but
you've taken I'll give you the taken responsibility for this
I don't
call.
want to sound like
It's
I'm
okay, it's
blaming
okay.
them. I do think though that and they did sort of, I feel like what happened now, what's happening in the church, and I do, so my family still, I myself don't really go, but I'm
Mhm,
not, I'm not, I I wouldn't say that that I don't believe in what I was taught or anything like that, but I don't go to church
mhm.
regularly. But a lot of my siblings do, and like I said, I have a lot of sisters, so I have a lot of girls in the church. My four younger sisters, um, that are in church now, I can see that that environment has changed for them. Like as they grew up as teens, that purity thing has kind of dropped off. I kind of feel like what the opposite has been done, which is what you're talking about, where it's kind of like, um, they don't want to hold people to those standards anymore of purity, but they
Mhm.
also like aren't going to call, they should still be calling women out, or at least explaining to women the importance of their chastity and purity
Yeah.
and why it's important. I think they just really have lacked, and it still is this way in the church, because they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about sex. Don't want to talk about the reality of those interpersonal relationships, and they don't want to explain like what effect what effects sex has on women, and how that affects our relationships moving forward.
Mhm.
And I wish someone would have told me those things early, for sure.
What do you wish the church told you? Like, if you could talk to your, like, I don't know, 16-year-old self, like, what messaging do you think would be good?
That's a really good question. I definitely wish someone would have explained to me about the detaching thing.
Mm.
About, the more people you sleep with, you're detaching. They would say the thing. I don't know if you heard this trope, but they would say like, you always leave a little piece of you with that person that
Yeah.
you slept with, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah.
But
I think they said
now,
tape or something. Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah.
I don't know. It's that same trope, and it's more like the opposite. Like I guess you could say yes, you like a part of you is gone, but um that there's like real. I've heard it everywhere.
Mhm,
There's real scientific evidence that it's this is not a Bible thing. This is a truth that the more partners you have, you are emotionally detaching, and it's not. I think specifically for females, it is not healthy, and not all women realize that's happening to them, and I
mhm,
didn't realize it myself. When I got older, after I broke up with that other guy, I was single for a year. I'm like a serial monogamous. I'm like never really single. I just always find someone, then I connect, and then I'm with them for a while. But
mhm,
I was single for a year, and I fell into this idea or trap that men want you to like be experienced. And that's another thing. I again, like, when you grow up in the church, you do think the opposite. Or you think that men aren't looking for, oh, they want you to be like perfect. So then if you're not, then you're like, okay, well, those guys aren't for me now, right? Because
mhm,
I'm not perfect anymore. Um, so then I kind of fell into that feminist idea, right? Of like, you should be sleeping with as many people as possible. You go, girl,
mm,
like do this, do this. And um, whatever. I think body counts matter, so I'm not going to share mine. But I would say that I learned really quickly how unsatisfying and horrible I felt, but I didn't really understand it because there really wasn't that messaging back then. This
mhm,
was like maybe 5 years ago. There really wasn't messaging to women. And a lot of women are hating on the red pill community, but I feel like there are a lot of good conversations for women in this community too.
mhm,
Because once I started hearing people like you talk about, the mental damage that can be done when you're doing that,
mhm.
um, for women, and what it means for men, like it's just no one ever said to me like, "Hey, men actually don't like it when they think
Mm.
you're a huge slut."
Do
Like,
you do you think you were able to consume the content easier because you have sons?
absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
I was going to say that too. I'm really grateful to a community. Again, I don't agree with everything you say. I mean, whatever. You're not my Jesus, right? But I
No? Sorry, I'm just kidding.
no, no,
I'm
but
not
I am so grateful for voices
Mm,
like yours. There's other voices out there that I totally agree with you. And yeah, raising boys and helping them like hearing these things. Yes, I think it makes it easier to digest and care about. But it also resonated with me personally. Like I said, I feel like I hit all these like negatives of the women, the
Mhm.
negative stereotypes, which is fine. Whatever, I did it. It is what it is. Um, but I also, it just made me realize quickly, like, oh, those were the mistakes I was making. These are the things
Mhm.
I wasn't understanding. I was seeing it backwards. Like it's a backwards idea to think that as a woman sleeping around is going to get you the best guy. And that's
Mhm.
just not true. But it's kind of put at you that way, or it's like, hey, this is what everyone's doing. Like we're all like, but it's really not true, and men don't see it that way. And also understanding how men see sex, I think I didn't understand that either.
Yeah.
And going back to that church conversation, I wish that was said. I Because you were always kind of, because you're raised around Christian men, you're you're like taught that men value sex the same way you do, because we're all supposed to be seeing it the same way. Not a reality
Mhm.
for most men, right? Not We're not all growing up in the church. We're not all growing up with these same
Well,
values. And
and for me, a more honest conversation would be that that girl was lucky she found a husband rather than he had to earn her and he deserved
absolutely,
her, because
absolutely,
that, implies that, again, their sexual activity, like, it would have been equally damaging, and it's not. It's just not true. We're not
yeah,
the same. For
yes,
me, would be more honest, but because for every, I mean, I'm sure you've been in any church. For every one girl, she got away with it because she was cute enough.
right,
Like, come on. If she had like 50 more pounds, no guy would put up with that.
right,
But
right,
to me,
and
that's a little bit more honest rather than
yes.
the you can just do a rebrand and you'll still get the same quality of guy. It's just not true.
I completely agree. And and attractiveness is another issue in the church. Like I don't know, that's another thing. And I don't know what to do about that. Like, what are we gonna say? Like a lot of like women that are into the purity thing and the modesty thing, how attractive is that to men out there too? It's and not what I don't mean the purity thing. What I mean is like, if you're like trying to be 100% not, like men are looking at all kinds of women all the time, Christian or not Christian,
Yeah.
and they're kind of putting them all together. And I like, so there's a lot. I mean, I think there's a lot of struggle for women in the church to find men in the church too that are good, like really good women, but they get passed over because they're really
Oh, I've
mediocre looking.
well, yeah, well, I've seen that. I've seen like a phenomenon. It's obviously the exception, but like of slightly older virgin women that on paper are okay. Maybe they have some, I don't know, that I don't know, but on paper would be okay. But they just struggle to find men they're attracted to because the men in church aren't attractive like to them, because there's women are not attracted to men that put women on pedestals, and I see a lot of
Yeah,
that in the church.
I think that's still going on in the church too. And I don't see like
And then
all the help.
one guy that's a demon comes in and just goes through all of
I in my own family, so I only have one brother.
Yeah.
And then I have my dad, and I always grew up knowing that like my dad was the head of the household, and my mom, she's a yeller, all that stuff. They
Mhm,
definitely argue, but she's not a princess, right? And he didn't
mhm,
ever treat her like that. But of course, treated her with absolute respect and everything like
mhm,
that. But my dad was really traditional. He went to work. My mom stayed at home with all of us, so she didn't work at all. And now my brother, who's married, and he's got 5 kids, and he has 4 girls, 2
mhm.
and 1 boy. And same thing, he works, and he like immediately, like my sister-in-law stays at home with all the kids. And out of all of us kids, I think so. I got married. I have a sister right under me who got. She's a whole other story, and she definitely checks all your boxes. And maybe someday she'll be on here to tell her story. But she's wild. She's the one you stay away from, people. But yeah, she's been married 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And then I have another sister that she, like, her and my brother both much more traditional relationships, and have outlasted. So I really do believe in the traditional sense. I'm not, I feel like any healthy marriages that I've seen that came out of the church community, or didn't just like friendships I have,
Mm,
they do are more traditional. And I think women don't want to hear that, but I just think it's true. I think it's easier to maintain a relationship that way. I don't know if maybe like if a man stays home and a woman works, like if it would still work or not. Like I don't know if that does
Yeah.
affect. I don't know if it has. I guess what I'm saying is I don't
We're
know if it
gonna
has
we're
to do
gonna
with
see
like
more of it, so we'll watch and see what
yeah, I
happens.
guess we'll see. But I wanted to ask you a couple, like, I think they might be challenging questions, but
Mhm,
like I said, they're not like got you questions. I just wanted to know your thoughts. Do
mhm.
I still have time to ask
Yeah, that's
them?
all right. Go ahead.
Okay, so my
Only
first
because 'cause
question.
you've been pleasant.
Thank you, thank you. So my first question is: do you think that a man gets? Because I know you're really passionate about like divorce
Yeah,
laws and
yeah.
also like protect, all that
Mhm.
stuff. So do you think a man gets more or less protection in court when he's not married but seeking custody?
Do I think a man gets
And
more?
I don't know the answer to this, by the way. So it's like I
Wait,
said,
no,
not a gotcha.
say it again. Sorry, say it one more
So do
time.
you think do you think a man gets more or so
I think
let
a
me
man
explain why I'm
gets.
at. So I'm asking this question because um and I know you're saying that you don't tell men what to do.
Mhm,
So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I know you're kind of advocating for like let's not like getting married is a bad idea, right?
mhm,
But if procreation happens, right? Like
mhm.
if a woman has your baby, so you're a man and
Mhm.
now a woman's got your baby, does a man get more or less protection in court when he's not married but seeking custody?
Protection in court when he is not married but seeking custody. Um, I would guess I would guess he would get more if he was married, but he would be on the hook for more for alimony. So it wouldn't just be child support. But I don't know, I could
Okay.
ask. I could get the answer. I could say it next show. There's I can actually
I
DM.
just think it'd be an interesting thing for you because I know you're doing that documentary
Yeah.
too, which I'm really interested in. I think it's a really cool one. And but I just think that when you're advocating for people not to get married,
Mhm.
um, I think there are some protect, like especially when it comes to
To
children
children.
specifically, that men could be like, okay, don't get married because of all these other things. But if you
Mhm.
have a child with somebody, this is me guessing. I don't know the answer. I think you get way less protection as a man and access to your child when you're not married.
Okay.
So that would be
I'm guessing it
my
depends
thought.
on the state. I guess I've just seen so many men that were married and were in the same position. It doesn't seem to make that much of a difference to me. But I just DM'd a guy that used to calculate like but I don't know if you saw him Shaw. I just asked if he knew the answer. So I'll ask around. I'll get you the answer eventually.
Okay. So my other question is, do you think do men get more or less protection for their assets being unmarried? And the reason I'm asking that is a circumstance of like, let's say that you have two people that cohabitate maybe for 5 6 years, so you're splitting rent. Maybe you even buy a house together,
Okay.
or you're building retirement, whatever. Like you could have like joint assets together. So do you like if you're in that sort of a situation where you're not wanting to get married because you're afraid of the institution, but when that relationship ends, what protection do you have when you're not married, or do you think they have more or less protection with their assets at that
These are really great questions. I don't know, but I'll get you the answer.
point? Okay.
These are really good
and
questions.
and I don't know the answer either. Like I said, not got you questions, I just thought of them and was wondering them.
Yeah.
Um another question I have is, are you proposing men should not procreate and create stable relationships going forward with women? So, like,
Mhm.
again, I know you're not telling people what to do, but if Pearl's a man, right? Are
I was
you
well, so the hard thing is I think women will choose to like there's going to be a portion of men that just aren't going to get sexual access because women are choosing to sleep with 20% of men. Even if we
okay?
double it to 40, there's going to be a percent of men that are going to walk away anyways. So, not partially choice sometimes, not by choice others. Um no, I think men that want to should. But it's just I think men need to have they need to be informed. So they should meet with like a if I said should, I don't like to say should because it like do what you want, but it would be wise to meet with the attorneys in your state to figure out what the laws are.
Yeah, I totally agreed. Totally agree. I heard you on Michael Knowles show saying that some states say the child should be with the mother till 16, and
Mhm.
I just thought that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
totally
I
unbelievable.
saw in Nashville, though, they abolished that law, like, a couple years ago, so I was like, "Oh, that's good." Or in
Yeah,
Tennessee.
that's good. So if men decide to use women solely for sexual or fun reasons, so let's say that we're all trying to force the social movement, right? Just
Mhm,
like there's women feminists that are trying to push the whole like OF thing or like women do what you want, sleep
mhm,
around. Okay, so we're forcing that social norm. But let's say men are like, okay, great, we're done with the whole, we're going to marry you up and stabilize families and all this. So we're done doing that.
mhm.
And if men decide to use women solely for sexual fun reasons, no commitment, does that lead to less promiscuous women or more promiscuous women?
Well, I would say that men can't do anything that women don't allow.
Fair.
So, it's not I think women are more responsible because we're the ones that allow sexual access because men will screw anything. That's the way I
Fair.
see it anyways. I would say it would be more promiscuous, but I think women that wanna be sexual are gonna do it anyways.
Okay.
Like
Yeah, fair.
like, you go to a concert, you see chicks, like, throwing their panties on stage. What are you gonna do to stop that chick?
Right.
Like, like, I can what am I supposed to do about it?
No, I agree. Everyone's responsible for themselves. And I mean, I think that's just a problem in our culture in general that I think that our culture is not about accepting responsibility on both
Mhm,
sides, men and women. I think a lot of people would rather blame anything but themselves, upbringing, all of that stuff.
mhm,
Personal responsibility is a hard thing to have. It's hard to look at yourself and say, like, that was a mistake. And yeah, so anyway, my last question, and
mhm,
then somebody else can like join. But thank you, Pearl, so
mhm,
much for letting me on here.
mhm,
I really like you. I think I really look up to you as a YouTube person. It's cool to see someone like start small and get big. So really
mhm.
cool. But last question, what responsibility, if any, do men have to advocate for the law changes?
Oh, men I think men should advocate, but they have been. That's the problem. They've had men's activist groups since the 1900s, like, for the same thing. So, I think men are doing it. They're just not very successful because we rely too much on the female vote. That's the problem.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would say I've literally never heard of a men's group advocating for changes to divorce laws. But
Mhm.
that, I mean, I also haven't been a huge
I
passionate
yeah.
researching it. But
I guess that's a good question. You've brought some good questions today because I guess that's why I get frustrated when I go on shows and I'm talking about men's issues and I feel like I'm getting waved like it's like oh whatever but women um yeah I guess men are responsible to some degree but I don't think men are aware. I think that's the biggest problem. I don't think most men know what they're signing up for. Like I don't think most men know in California if they don't establish paternity before the age of 2, even if the kid's not theirs, that they have that for life. I think most men don't know.
yeah, that's crazy. I totally agree with you on a lot of the things you say, like the mandatory DNA testing. I thought that was really wild that Michael Knowles was like, "That's offensive to women." Why would it be? I don't really see that as offensive. To me, like, why not? You just might as well. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong. If you're like already in the hospital, they're doing all the tests anyway. Why wouldn't it just be tacked right on? I don't see the issue with
I
it
give
at all.
my ID to get liquor. I'm not offended,
Right,
because they
exactly.
verify.
I don't see a reason why that would be an issue. It's like better for, I mean, it's better for all parties, like women too. Like if that relationship goes south and then the guy all of a sudden starts deciding that that's not his kid, having that protection right at the beginning gives you like,
Yeah.
it's good for all parties. So I don't know why that's not done here. But anyway, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming. Have a good one.